School session. My name is Phil Lichtenberger, and I do this once a month where I answer your questions live on social media. So that's on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. That's the fourth one. So there we go. Out of breath, I'm running around, and it's taking a toll on my body, right? For those of you who don't know, I am battling a cancer diagnosis. This is why things look a little bit different up top. And when you see me again next month, yeah, I'll look like Mr. Clean at that point. So it's part of the treatment, but we got to do what we got to do. So the point of today's session is to answer your questions. And what we have over here on the side here, if I can find the, if I can find the right thing, let's see. Oh, it's missing from my setup here. That's not good. There should have been a question banner that's over here on the side, but it looks like it's not here anymore in my thing. So we'll have to just rely on looking at this system differently. So what we basically have is chat down there on YouTube. You can leave me a chat over on the side. You can go ahead and leave me a chat down below in Facebook and everything else. So while we're waiting for questions to come in, and you know what, I'm actually going to check the YouTube just to make sure that we are actually live, because that would be a bad thing if I'm not talking to anybody over here and nobody knows that I am live. It says I'm live, so there we go. We're good to go here now. Let's view in control room here. Perfect. John is in. It's weird. I don't see you guys in the other chat. I don't know why, if it's not connected. And Wayne and John, have you both in? Great. Thanks you so much for being there. And I also see Chris is in from East Lansing, Michigan. Chris, good to have you. And now there we go. We got the chat populating in there as well. So, if you guys also don't know, we answer your questions live on our podcast, and we are doing our podcasting now in video format for the most part. This past Ask Scanner School session was just a video, just an audio only version of the podcast, just basically down to time constraints here. I'm at the point now where my backup is up against the wall. I'm actually finishing next Tuesday's podcast episode today, which means it's late. And then I still have to do the week after that and close out. So I'm noticing that with my medications and everything else, it's taking me a lot longer to do things. Things are slowing up on my end. They're getting more difficult, but we're still here because I love doing this and I love being with you guys here. While we're waiting for some questions to come in, what I'll do is we'll run through some questions that came in on this past week's Ask Scanner School that released on Tuesday. And Glenn is in right now. He's over on our Zoom session for our Patreon supporters, and we'll follow up with what fill in a little bit of the blanks here from that question. So Glenn's question earlier was all about he's got two rooms basically. His software-defined radios are in one room, and his receiver, his desk, or his radios are in a separate room. And I really want to change out the screen that I have on screen right now. So let me do this here. While we got this going on, let's see if I can do something a little bit better. All right, there we go. Perfect. So now you guys have the questions over here on that side. And Kenneth, good to see you. I got you over on the Zoom session. Thanks for joining. So Glenn's question was basically, how does he listen to his software-defined radios that he has running in a different room of his basement? And his radio room is somewhere different. And the reason why, after having a conversation or email exchange afterwards, that is set up that way is because in Glenn's radio room, he has transmitting equipment, and he wants to isolate the distance between his SDRs and his transmitters. So the question really is it safe to run basically a audio cable from the computer that's running the SDRs in a remote room and run that into where his radio stuff is? And it could be okay depending on the distance and the thickness of the gauge of the wire he's using, whether or not the speakers he's using are amplified, how much amplification is in there, and everything else like that. And of course, the longer the line on the wire is, the longer, the more noise that could be introduced and stuff like that. So my question really was, well, why are we going through this if you are in a room now that already has a computer? Why are you not just streaming it from the PC you have now that's already streaming into the radio room? I think he had a dedicated computer for that, but if he can share a computer and share resources, that would be great. But if he has to run a dedicated computer, he could always swap that out to a phone or a tablet or something like that. That's even less energy, because all you're really doing is typically streaming a web page that's set up. And his setup is basically a couple of software-defined radios. He's running Trunk SDR, which is a universal platform type of computer interfaced trunking receiver. What I mean by universal, it runs on Windows, it runs on Linux, and it runs on Mac, which is great. And then that feeds into Trunking Recorder, I think is it. It's scannerbox.us's platform. And then from there, you would need Windows for that at least. That basically catalogs and queues up any talk groups. And the reason for that is we know we have our scanner is we only listen to the active talk group. We only hear what the scanner is currently listening to at that particular moment. And if somebody else is transmitting or there's another talk group that's active, we can't hear it because we're on a different talk group. Well, when you run software-defined radios through applications and use Trunking Recorder or whatever scanner radiobox.us's application is, I always get it wrong, it will queue up the audio. It has the ability now to buffer all of these talk groups that are in our listen list, and we don't miss now conversations. It will queue up based on the next in queue, or we can filter it out and say, well, I'm only interested in listening to this one talk group or these series of talk groups, and we can create smaller scan lists based on everything. So think about it this way. We're ingesting or we're bringing in every talk group that we possibly can listen to, but we're telling Trunking Recorder, only feed me these individual talk groups at this time. And we can always go back later and say, okay, well, they moved over to a tactical group that I didn't realize they had. Let's bring up that talk group now and just listen to that one talk group. And it's like a DVR. We can go back and replay that audio, which is really cool. Now, in my advanced SDR guide for Windows, we are adding those modules into the course. Now, my goal is to have it done by the end of the year. That's an unrealistic goal, but that's my goal anyway. And we are looking at releasing the Unitrunker module, which is part one of this. Trunk SDR is in the works, and then of course the Trunking Recorder will be the icing on the cake. So that's where we are with that. So that is basically closing the loop on the question that was asked by Glenn earlier in the podcast. Juan is in here, and he says, what kind of scanner do I need for my area? And Juan, I'd be more than happy to help you with that. If you leave me in the comments below, at least leave me the county and the state that you're in, or the country also if you're outside the United States. We'll go through this exercise now. It's a really good exercise to do. If you're comfortable leaving the town, that would help even more because we'll figure out exactly what you would need there. I am answering these kinds of questions on my YouTube channel as well, so I know people are waiting for answers on that one. It's taking me a little bit longer than usual now that I'm on chemo. Everything is slowed down. 5 o'clock is almost bedtime for me at night, which is ridiculous, but as soon as dinner time hits, I'm asleep on the couch, which really knocks out a lot of my content creation time. Which is also why we've rescheduled this for the daytime, because I'm just not awake anymore once dinner rolls around. All right. So, Juan, while I'm waiting for that question follow-up to come in here too, we got New Mexico Mixfit. Good to have you in from the New Mexico mountains. And Glenn is saying, will a TFC 10 cable work for a scanner monitoring, even though it's 75 ohms rather than 50? Glenn, that would be okay if it says 75 ohms and not 50, but let's take an exact look at exactly what is TFC T10, because I'm not familiar with that. And it looks like it's low loss LMR 600. Let's see. People are comparing it to RG6. How to connect TFC T10 to RG6. What is TFC T10? There's a good one here. So the answer I'm seeing right here on AVS forums, and let me share this screen so you guys can read at home as well. Where are we here? Where this is here. We're going to click on this, transition here, and then we're going to zoom in on this so you can see it better. Of course, there's a pop-up ad, and I do not want to log in. So the question basically is, what is TFC10? And the answer basically is it's times fiber communication cable, usually used as a drop to feed the house from the street. And it can have a messenger, which is basically like a secondary cable, like a grounding cable. So if we take this answer here for everything that it's worth and at its, it sounds to me like it's just higher quality RG6 cable. Based on what I was seeing earlier too, it looks like it is, if you look at it here, it's LMR 600. Looks very similar to RG6. Kind of hoping it had the diameter in here. Look at this. You got standard RF cables, which looks nice. Specifications. I'm looking for the diameter. Installation. 1.44 millimeter. Doesn't help me. Millimeters. I don't speak millimeters. But here's your loss right here. You got 1.71 dB per 100 feet of loss at 400. At 900, you have 2.5 dB of loss. And don't forget, 3 dB is your half power point, okay? So is it the best? No, right? It's not the best. But if it's equivalent, this is 50 ohms up here too, okay? But if it's equivalent to RG6, and RG6 is basically 75 ohm cable, your scanner is really, it's. I don't personally think it's a big enough of a difference on a receiver that we're going to affect anything. Yeah, the impedance isn't going to be right, but don't forget, as you tune through frequencies, you're changing the resonant frequency anyway of what it is receiving. Are you changing the impedance? I'm sure the impedance is waving up and down as you work through the tunable range of the antenna, whatever it is that you're using. So you may see a little bit of a degradation in what you would expect from 50 ohm cable, but in the end, it's very common to use RG6 for scanners for receiving because it's a lot more affordable than LMR 400. It's easily available. You can go to Radio Shack. You can go to Home Depot. You can go to Lowe's, and you can buy a spool of RG6. It's very easy to work with. It's common around the house, and we can get connectors, right? We can get BNC F connectors because it's the same cable that we use on our security cameras at home as well. So to transition from RG6 into our RF network and environment is very simple. No more having to put F connectors than an F2 BNC connector or something like that. So if it is equivalent, Glenn, to if TFC T10 is very similar and equivalent in all aspects to RG6, I say go for it. Especially if you're just making some small jumpers. Would it be my choice? No. But you want to know something? The cable that goes from behind my head here that you guys can't see all the way around the basement to where my main line comes in is temporarily right now set up with RG6 because I had to move all my stuff to this side of the basement. And until I can get everything all squared away and get LMR run, the RG6 on my basement right now is better than nothing. So that's why I'm saying that we're good with that one. All right. Let's go on to another question here. We've got UDX290 4TN. Hey, Phil, just want to say thanks for your help. To follow up last week's question, my AnyTone 868 is working great for listening to my local PD's DMR tactical channel. Excellent. I think I saw a follow-up on that earlier in a comment that I didn't get a chance to respond back to. But I'm glad to hear it's working well for you. I don't know if it was trunking or just conventional, but if it works, it works. And mine's actually out in the car, but the 878, to be honest with you, is the handheld radio that I've actually used the most this year. I know it's pretty surprising to hear. And the reason why I use that radio the most is because technically it's not a scanner. It's a two-way radio made for amateur radio, which means here in New York, you're not really supposed to have, you're not allowed to, according to the VTLs, you can't have a scanner in your vehicle, but you can have a radio, a transceiver that is capable of going outside the amateur radio band. And they wrote that in because most radios go outside the amateur radio band, but they're made to transmit in the radio band, which means that I can take that radio and use it as a scanner. Now, I'm not using it to monitor anything in public safety band as I'm driving, because, I would never admit to that on a live channel here. But what I primarily use it for is listening to GMRS, listening to amateur radio, listening to FRS, GMRS, MRS, business band stuff, because I like taking that radio with me. And while I'm waiting for people to come in and out of wherever they're coming in and out of, like my daughter at her school, or if we're taking the drive-through, I like scanning through those channels just to listen around what's going on. And, of course, the last time that my daughter and I went to Chick-fil-A, yeah, we got them, and I gave her the radio, and she loved listening to the radio and hearing what was happening on the drive-through line as we were waiting for our food. When I pick her up from school, she loves listening to the school channel because she knows the kids they're talking about, and she's very interested in knowing what is going on. For example, I heard them say something about when the teachers was locked out of her classroom and they needed maintenance. And of course, this is during dismissal time. So it was very important that the buses do not leave because this teacher's grade wasn't coming down for dismissal yet. So again, my daughter was, loving the fact that she can listen to that stuff on that radio. So for that reason whatsoever, or for that reason alone, that radio has pretty much been my EDC, or my everyday carry when it comes to a radio. Not to say if I'm taking a bag with me, I'm taking a TRX-1 with me, and I'm pretty much taking my 436 as well. The other thing I'm taking in my bag with me is a SDR of some sort. And yeah, when I take my bag, it is pretty much my laptop, my iPad, a couple of radios. I did order some stuff that I'm waiting to review from Whistler. I ordered actually a covert one of those air tube earpieces. So we'll run a review on that next year and see how that works. And that's always a wired earpiece, which I keep in the car because I like to be able to plug those in to the tops of the scanners here and listen. So I'll have two things there going. We got a Facebook user in as well. Says, "Good morning, Phil," and I'm not on Facebook right now, so I don't know who you are, but good morning to you. All right, Juan, going back to your stuff, let's take a look at Radio Reference. Let me go ahead here and bring up Radio References database here. Let's see, DB admin, and let me transition. All right, Juan, let's go through this. Dan, good to have you on AB2FD. Thank you for joining. So the first thing we're going to do, Juan, is we're going to go and we're going to browse in the radio reference database here. And I'm hoping that I got this big enough so you guys can see it easy. Let's go ahead and close this off on the side. We'll give ourselves some more real estate. And I need to now move it over on this side again because I lost where you were. Texas, Del Rio, Texas. Verde, Val Verde County. All right, let me just see how this looks on my screen. We're good. Let me zoom in on it a little bit more. It's not going to let me do it. I will try it when I change screens here. If it's too small, let me know. Val Verde. Oh, before I do this too, I want to just see on the side here what we have for statewide systems. Air traffic, criminal DOs, let's see, Department of Public Safety. We're going to look at these just really quickly. I'm just queuing them up so that they're here. I don't know if any of this is any interest to you at all, but we're just going to drop these in anyway. All right, Val Verde. Let's take a look. Browse. All right, so we got this Gators system, which I'm pretty familiar with. It's a P25 system. And let's see, Del Rio. Let's see, we go through here. So Val Verde, we have Sheriff's Dispatch. Let me just see how this looks on the screen. Yeah, I got to zoom in on this so you guys can see better. There we go. That should be a little bit easier to see. Verde County, we've got sheriffs is all in analog, narrow FM, so that would be good. Del Rio itself, which is where you were looking for specifically, again, is on the Gator system. Police car to car, fire dispatch, and transport. We are all looking right now as analog. At this point, right now, we're looking at analog for both PD and fire. So we are safe to say anything like a, this is an SR30C, which is an entry-level scanner, which is good. I do not have my BC125AT handy with me right now, but no, I do. It's right here. This is an upgrade model. And in fact, if you listen to or watch our 2022 Holiday Buyer's Guide, this is my buy for a scanner radio at this entry-level position. It's about $130-ish or so. 500 channels, alpha tags, PL, DPL. But before we make up our mind that this is what we want, we had to continue to look through Verde County. But just as what we're looking right now, we're off to a good start. And we got this Air Force base down here. So let's look at the Gator system, because this is the next thing that's going to trip us up here. So we know this Gator system is a P25 Phase 2 system. And other things to look at here, too, is we are looking at some simplex frequencies used by users on the system, which we want to keep in the back of our mind. And if we look and we sort by county here, we are going to look for Verde. And let's see what we got. Del Rio, Loma Alta, Comstock, and Juneau and Pumpville. Let's look at this other one here we got. Let's see, that's probably at the end. So this site, this Verde site, covers this area here, but it looks like for some, it's got other transmitters outside of the county. These might be linked in or something like that, or it might be sharing a common call sign. But we're only really getting, let's see, FCC call sign. There we go. So we got multiple locations here. Again, I don't know if these are, all right, see, these are multiple counties. I don't know if these are all linked together in simulcast. So, which is what I'm hesitating right now. It doesn't say simulcast here, right? So we may think that this is a standalone, these are standalone sites. When we look at some other sites here, right? Bastrop is labeled as simulcast. But none of these other sites here are labeled as simulcast. Which has me wondering, are any of these simulcast 1 in Travis? Okay, we got simulcast 1, simulcast 7 in Travis. By the way, you have to look at the simulcast 1 and 7. I did some radio programming for somebody in here, and only one of these is handling voice traffic. Williamson's got a simulcast 2. So maybe these are not simulcast, which might be a good thing, because that may not require you to need an SDS 100 and SDS 200. You may be able to get away with a TRX1 or a TRX2, a BC96P2, a 325, or even a 436 or 536. But if these are simulcast, it's something to look out for. But again, look at this too, right? These are VHF. So very interesting here. All right, let's look at this here. So we got interop regional. If any of these are of interest to you, Juan, then you're going to want to upgrade into a trunking scanner. But if you don't have any interest in any of this stuff that we're looking at here, then you're okay with what we talked about earlier with the analog-only channel. The D, by the way, in this column here means that it's a phase 1 talk group. So let's look for, here's Bastrop. Let's look for Verde. We have 6 matches. Verde County. So we do have police dispatch, EMS dispatch, sheriffs, and fire operations and dispatch here. Now, we have seen that we have fire at dispatch and operations and sheriff and also police on conventional VHF. Does that mean that you're not going to hear them on conventional VHF? I don't know. That's something you're going to have to find out. What I can tell you is that there are listings in Radio Reference for the analog stuff, but also for this P25 digital stuff. Maybe they're patched in together. Maybe they're primarily using the trunk system, or maybe they're not. I don't know. But I think to play it safe, you may want to grab a P25, at least phase 1 scanner, and that would be what I would look at. Now, question mark on the simulcast. Let's just assume we don't have simulcast here. We're looking at something that's P25 phase 1. You could get away with a used scanner here. So we're looking at like, will it work okay? Yeah, like a BC 796D, a BC's, what was the handheld version of that? But these are old scanners, like a Pro 96. I hate the Pro 96, but it would probably work here, the 2096. The Whistler 1065, the 1040, the TRX1, the TRX2, the BCD 325, 996. All of these scanners are in that buyer's guide that we put out with some links and affiliate links too. So if you want any of these scanners, I invite you to go check out that video. And if you look in the description, we'll have some links down there as well. Really quickly, because we are running out of time here. Department of Criminal Justice, again, we'll look in here. Looks like, again, this is analog. And I know that my resolution here changed on the screen, but we're not looking at anything that says encryption or something like that. So this is open to monitor. Department of Public Safety. Wow. P25. Okay, so the statewide channel plan for public safety, a lot of this was P25 here, but it's analog. I mean, I'm sorry, it's not analog. It's P25 conventional. P25, Houston. Verde's not found. I'm guessing region 3. P25. So again, you want a P25 scanner if any of this is something you want to listen to, right? Let's keep on going here. Department of Health and Services, narrow FM, that's analog. Department of Transportation, I think it's LRD. P20, a lot of P25 here, non-encryption. So again, a regular P25 based scanner will be something here. Medevac for Texas. We're looking at FM and AM, no surprise there. But again, we may... Yeah, that's that. Military and Defense, FM. That was the National Guard, by the way. Alcohol Beverage Commission, we have P25 in Fort Worth. Common Shared, narrow FM, and some P25 here for Huspeth, Javis, Pesco, Presidio, and Terrell County Sheriff's Offices. Texas Federal P25, lots of narrowband FM. Parks and Wildlife is a mix, mostly narrowband FM. Texas Rails, you'd expect VHF FM. And trunking systems. Again, we got the Gator system. We got this Air Force system. If there's anything you want to listen to here, Phase 1, P25. And then the last thing I wanted to look at here in the radio reference database, I'm going to go back to Browse. I'm going to go back to Texas. I want to go back to Verde. I want to go to Trunk Systems. American Power, the Gator system, and the U.S. Air Force we looked at here. So American Power is a P25 system. I think we've got TDMA control channel here. You're not going to be able to listen to this with a scanner if that's what the case is here. TDMA talk group. So you need at least a phase 2 talk group here. But yeah, just to some sites started using TDMA control channels, right? But you can use some software-defined radios. So I would think, yeah, you know, Glenn, I saw that one. I almost jumped on that. We'll talk offline about that in a minute. But one, to answer your question on this one, and sorry, my everything's moving slow in my head with medication I'm on. 125 AT could get you started. I think you're going to want to at least look at a 325 AT. And if there's any simulcast in the area, I think that's going to dictate really if you need to upgrade to the SDS 100 or 200. But that's where I would go with that one. Good question. Good question. Let me go back and transition over here. All right, let's move on to another one here. Gary Dean, outside of radio references, are there any good sites to have good list of frequencies? Depends on the area you're in, Gary. Outside of the U.S., like in Australia, radio reference is very lacking in that area, so you may want to find, specific local websites for that. There's a good website that is for cruise lining. That's got really good stuff. And this is a good topic too that I have in queue right now for an upcoming video and podcast, is building your own scanner radio website, because there's a lot of information that's out there that's very local and centralized. And these local websites too do a very good job at taking information. While Radio Reference is a good resource, the FCC website is always going to give you who's licensed, right? There's FCC updates, and unfortunately, the author of that website is also having some health issues, so he stopped updating his website recently. Digital frequency search is another one. I think that website stopped updating, if I'm not mistaken. Google is going to be a friend here on this one. Live ATC is a good one if you want to get some navigation and aviation stuff, but a lot of stuff is also in radio reference as well. So Gary, you may just want to again, I run a website that I haven't updated in a very long time, where I was very religious on putting frequencies on there as well. So again, Google may be your friend when you just look for frequencies in this county, frequencies in the state, may yield some of these smaller websites like the one that I manage to help you find some local frequencies. Kevin is in. Kevin says, I have an SDS 100 trying to figure out control channels. I have a system I'm looking at, which is a new system, Wisconsin Wiscom Department of Corrections. One of the control channels, but I'm told there's at least one other control channel, possibly two. In radio reference, it only lists one control channel. So Kevin, any frequency really in a P25 network could be a control channel at any time. So really what I like to recommend is putting in all the frequencies. With scanners like the SDS 100 and the SDS 200 that run off of an SD card, it's you're not really losing memory spots by adding in every single voice channel. I really recommend that, because if you only have one control channel, but you know all the rest of the voice channels, put them all in. Because if that voice channel ever disappears and you have the rest of the voice channels there, you may find out that those become the secondary control channels. The reason why in radio reference you may only see one control channel is because they've only been able to confirm the fact that there is only one control channel available. This is where software like Unitrunker, Trunk SDR, DSD Plus may come in handy as well, because it will tell you from the over-the-air messaging what some of the alternate control channels may happen to be. It may also tell you what the neighbors are. So I have never really played around with Discover mode too much in this, but I also know in my Home Patrol that a lot of information that was coming in over the air was sent out and able to be seen on the Home Patrol. I haven't used it in a long time, so I don't think this information is even visible in the Home Patrol. But I would recommend, Kevin, if you have an SDR, plug that into DSD Plus, Unitrunker, or Trunk SDR. See what you can get out of that software to say what the alternate control channels may happen to be. When it comes to scanning, I don't think we get that information. That's very easy. We don't see it until that channel becomes the active control channel, and that's when radio reference gets updated. If you're looking at other frequencies just to put in there, go to the FCC website, find the FCC license for that control channel, see what other frequencies are part of that license, and maybe you put those in the scanner as well. Again, you're not going to hear the alternate control channel until it becomes the primary control channel. So that may be why on radio reference you're just not seeing that information over there. So it's a good question, though. That's a very good question. Before we split from today's session, again, these are normally a half hour. We normally do these on the first Tuesday of every month. The next first Tuesday is not going to work. It's going to interfere with my treatment, which means I am going to be warmed up, dog waste, to put it politely. And that whole week may just not work out well. The reason why I'm doing it today is, again, I'm going for treatment next week, which means it is not going to be a good week between now and the end of the year. So I want to set aside some time, spend some time with you guys. I love doing these ask sessions. Can't keep them going without you guys being a part of it. So thank you very much for spending your Saturday mornings with me. Hopefully you've enjoyed a cup of coffee. Me, I've been chugging Gatorade like it goes out of style to stay hydrated over here. I've already had one instance already where I've had to be put on a bag because I just couldn't function anymore. So with that, guys, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please subscribe to our podcast. And then we'll see you all next month. Have a very great holiday season. If I don't see you beforehand, have a great New Year's. And when you guys see me next on this, we'll look a little bit different.